Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary and General Dunford, for being here. Mr. Secretary, I just following up on Representative Winstrop's question, but are you aware of any discussions to close the naval station at Guantanamo Bay or transfer it to Cuba?
I'm not, no.
General Dunford, same question for you. Are you aware of any discussions to close the naval station at Guantanamo Bay or transfer it to Cuba?
I'm not, Congressman.
Mr. Secretary, your department delivered a product in February entitled Plan for Closing the Guantanamo Bay Detention Facility. However, this document failed to address the specific elements required by the FY16 NDAA. Therefore, as this committee has previously stated, the requirement has not been met. In this document, there were 3 options outlined for handling future detainees. They were on a case-by-case basis. Number 1 was prosecution in the military commission system or in federal court. 2, transfer to another country for an appropriate disposition there. Or 3, law of war detention. Yet in recent testimony, senior Department of Defense officials testified that, and I'm referencing this article, Stars and Stripes, they testified there is a requirement for long-term detention, but, quote, they do not know where long-term prisoners would be housed, which I think this is very troubling testimony, Mr. Secretary, considering we currently do have a location. So my question is, prior to conducting an operation where capturing individuals is either intended or possible, do you have to determine which of these 3 options is appropriate?
Generally speaking, we do and have, and that has worked out. And with respect to the report, if I can just respond to that, and the question of location, we were not specific about a location, and the reason for that is this. We need the optimal location for a law of war detention facility will depend upon several things that we don't know right now. For example, we don't know whether the Congress is going to respond to this idea. If we can do it quickly, then we'll probably pick an existing facility and try to build on that. If
an existing facility in this country?
Yes. If we have an alternative, if we have a longer period of time, we may build a new facility from scratch. It will depend upon the number of detainees that we have and that we plan for. It will depend upon the structure of the military commissions process, which is something which is set in statute, by the way. So the very reason that we have to discuss this to the with the Congress, and we submitted this plan because, let me be clear, it is forbidden by law to do this now. So we need your concurrence.
Oh, I understand. I'm very familiar with the law.
Without that, and the reason that the plan calls for a dialogue between us and the Hill is that we can't select the optimal design and therefore the optimal location and therefore fully do the costing until that conversation has been had, because you guys have a say in the design parameters of the ultimate facility. But I hope you'll give it consideration. I've said, and I believe this, I think it would be good to put this on a path to being dealt with by the time the administrations change.
I understand, and I apologize for interrupting. I guess 2 things, and you and I have talked about this for months, but 2 things. I think the American people look at this, as I do, as a very dangerous precedent that we're looking at potentially bringing these terrorists with blood on their hands, have already killed Americans, back to this soil, which I think is reprehensible. But secondly, we were just reminded again with this bombing this morning in Brussels that there is an active war on terror, and I've been sitting here 3 hours, and the first question the chairman asked was about strategy and things that were supposed to be, handed over to the Congress in February, and they still haven't. And I look at this kind of the same thing, that, we're still waiting for some kind of a detailed plan that the President said would be made available, and you have too. My question is this: is it possible that due to such factors as bureaucratic obstacles, delays in timing, inability to negotiate with another country, that an opportunity to conduct a capture operation would be lost? Or, in other words, would this issue of not being able to have a place for future detainees because of the President's desire to close Guantanamo and bring those terrorists here ever inhibit a question on these attacks that we're doing with ISIL and engaging with them, the issue of, like, let's not go there because we don't know and we don't want these long-term prisoners?
That's not occurred in my observation. Let me ask the chairman.
No, Congressman, and frankly, that'd be one of the first things that I would ask if we were asked to do something. Is that's going to be part of the decision making to go after an individual, is what's going to be the disposition of that individual.
And what if the answer comes back, because we know there's long-term situations now engaging, what if the answer comes back and says, you know, we simply don't know, or Gitmo, because Gitmo's an operation right now that is there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Byrne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.